Hi, this is Dustin Haney with Channel 3, and I'm sitting here with the mayor of Buchanan, David McCauley. He is on his exit as he has 13 days left in office. Now, David, you've been mayor for the last 4 years.
50 months. Yeah.
50 months.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about what you've enjoyed most about this job.
Wow. The enjoyment side is, that's a tough question because I think every day has been a thrill, oftentimes a roller coaster ride, because there's a lot more to being mayor than just issuing proclamations and recognizing people and cutting ribbons and kissing babies. That's part of what we do. But every day has been rewarding from the perspective that we have seen our city advance in virtually every area that we conduct our business in.
Mm-hmm. The city has definitely made some advancements over the last 50 months that you've been in office. I mean, it's been noticeable, even from small business perspective to social issues, which your agenda was pretty much primarily on. I think we've taken a step forward in that direction.
Sure.
Any highlights that you would like to note?
I think one of the single biggest things that we managed to accomplish was to improve our fiscal financial situation. And by that, I could point to a couple of things. One was getting a better handle on our workforce. We had 90 plus employees, full-time employees, when I started, and we whittled that down to about 80 until we stabilized things in other areas. We're back to pushing 90 again right now, but it's not because we've just engaged in unnecessary bloating of employees. We've just got a lot more work for them to do than what we did before. We put into effect a two-tier sewer rate increase, which folks didn't like back in 2016, 2017. But the sanitary board had long been sort of the redheaded stepchild among our four utility operations. And there were times when the general fund, until the utility bill payments would come in, the general fund would have to advance a few $1,000 at payroll time so the sanitary board could pay its employees. And I had heard about this for years and years because I was the city attorney for going on 33 years before I became mayor, and enough was enough. We were among the very lowest sewer rate entities, 318 providers in the state, and we were like down at 25 or 30. I said, enough's enough. We've got to increase our sewer rates so that we pay our people livable, competitive salaries, and we need to establish a reserve in case of emergencies. So sewer rates went up. We're at the 46th percentile right now among those 318 utility providers, meaning that 54% of the other entities charge more for their sewer than does Buchanan. But it's made us very viable, and we've managed to, we've got a 12.5% reserve, which is required by the state of West Virginia, which we had never had. We managed to increase salaries of our employees and sanitary board. Our sewer plant has made incredible improvements. When the sewer plant opened in 1987, it was expected to have about a 40-year life. In 2020, that same sewer plant has a 40-year life. So when you invest resources in your facilities and your people, the sky's really the limit. The other issue that we had was a very stagnant general fund. The revenues had not increased at all over a period of about 5 years. And yet the cost of our general fund doing business continued to spike. So we bit the bullet and implemented the sales tax, 1%. And as a result of that, again, our general fund has never been in better financial condition than what it is right now. Sales tax, while a lot of folks resent that extra penny that they pay when they buy something at Walmart on the dollar, it was so important. And in the big picture, it does not just affect the people that live within the corporate limits. It's a fair tax because everybody from Upshur County and Webster County and Braxton County and Lewis and Barber and Randolph County that come to our Buchanan, Lowe's and Walmart and other establishments here, they're paying that 1% too. So only about 20% of that new $1 million+ a year we're realizing from the sales tax is actually paid by the residents of Buchanan. So I think the single biggest thing we've managed to accomplish is financial stability, which lets us do a whole lot of things for our police department and fire department and our utility operations.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the future of the city moving forward, absolutely.
It sure does, unequivocally.
Now, you've been a primary figure in our community for a long time.
Going on 38 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about primary, but I've been here for going on 38 years.
You've been a notable figure in the community for a long time. Tell us about your journey. You know, where did you come from, and how did you get here?
I grew up in Wheeling, and I've only ever had 3 stops. Wheeling for 18 years, Morgantown for 7 years to earn my bachelor's and law degrees, and then ever since here. So Wheeling, Morgantown, and Buchanan. I'm a decently traveled guy. I've been to virtually all places in the United States, but West Virginia has always been home. And now with 38 of the 62 years having been here, I've been here way longer than I was anyplace else prior to that. My mom still resides in Wheeling. I lost my dad almost 2 years ago. The siblings are scattered all over the place: South Carolina, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. But we still get home every few weeks to visit with Mom and take care of business up there.
Good. Now, whenever you, let's take you back to exactly more about 5 years ago when you decided to run for mayor.
Okay.
What was on your agenda at that time? What change did you want to make, and what change did you make that fit that?
Well, because of the circumstances of my departure as city attorney, when the then acting mayor didn't want me telling him what the city could and could not do any further, and I was basically forced into a retirement from that position. The city employees threw a reception for me at the end of my time as city attorney, and I unveiled then my plan that 6 months later I would file for mayor and run. And it was an interesting 6-month period not being involved with the city anymore. Actually, I was serving on the planning commission and a couple other things, and was still doing work behind the scenes for the city because they had hired a new city attorney that was not all that familiar with our operations. So yeah, it was a bit of a catharsis to challenge the person who had indicated they didn't think I needed to be part of the organization anymore, and to be able to come back and a few months later and assume the reins of mayor. It was a good experience.
Good. Yeah, I certainly remember those times. So seeing what, from that time moving to now, I can definitely say that there was a lot of progress made. And the city's definitely in a better position now than what it was. So I definitely thank you for that.
I think we restored integrity to the office. While some still grouse that there's too many sneaky behind-the-scenes things that go on, I can look anybody in the eye and tell them with 100% certainty that our operations have never been more transparent and above board than what they are right now. I worked for 8 different mayors or acting mayors in that 33 years before I became in this position. And we did a lot of things right out of the chutes, such as establishing agendas for every single council, commission, board, committee meeting. We always have an agenda. It's always published and made available to the public at least 3 days before the meeting. So it's not just the city council meetings that subscribe to that process, but all of our city operations subscribe to it. Additionally, I raised that same bar of expectation with our partnering public service districts in water and sewer operations. They didn't have agendas, they didn't keep minutes, they didn't share agendas or minutes, And we saw to it that those things happened. It's important from a utility management perspective that if one of these outlying public service districts is planning a new project that's going to result in more water being expected from our water system, because we're the only water system in Upshur County. We also provide bits and pieces of water to 5 counties that surround us. People sometimes lose sight of that. We're one of only 12 Class 4 water plants in all of West Virginia. It's a huge operation. We hold our public service district partners to the same standard that we follow, which is what the law requires. So the utilities are really the core of what we do here in Buchanan.
Good. Now, in 13 days, Robbie Skinner, mayor-elect, is getting ready to take office. What do you have on your agenda post-mayor?
I want to try to help Robbie be as successful as possible. I've known Robbie since he was a little kid, and his dad and I have been colleagues at the college for a good chunk of that, going on 38 years that I've been up there. Bob left the college for a while back in the 80s and went into banking for a couple of 3 years while I was still there. But we have a long friendship and history. So I think all of us should be on the bandwagon to hope that Buchanan continues to succeed. And it's real easy for me to support him any way I can in those hopeful successes.
Good, good. Now, any personal things? Like, what are you going to do come July 1st? Vacation? Do you?
I have a friend that relocated from Pittsburgh to Myrtle Beach about 4, 5, 6 months ago, and there's been an invitation to go there. The fact that Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is the single biggest spike in COVID-19 right now in the country. I'm thinking more that I'm going to take a trip to Mount Rushmore. Okay. I've never been out to South Dakota, and I'm a huge history kind of a buff. And to be able to go to Mount Rushmore and to see the Crazy Horse sculpting out there that's about 18 miles from Mount Rushmore, I think it would be a real rush, no pun intended, to see those things. So I think I'm going to do that. I'll be able to spend more time with my 7 monkeys, as I refer to my grandchildren as being, and a few more trips to Wheeling to see my mom. And every once in a while, somebody will, the light bulb will finally come on that said, somebody told me you teach a class up at the college, and I teach 6 or 8 of them a year, and I have for the last going on 38 years. That's my primary employment has been at Wesleyan. And of course, I continue to be general counsel for the college, so I still practice law, primarily for the college, and I still teach a full array of courses. So going back to just one full-time job for years and years, basically having 2 full-time jobs, at 62, it's okay if I just have one full-time job for a while. Of
course, yeah. Well, I definitely want to thank you for the interview. From everyone, I can speak for Buchanan. We definitely appreciate the impact that you've had on the city, and moving forward, we just want to wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you.
And I'll definitely see you around in the community.
Yeah.
But
in closing, I would just say that you mentioned at the outset the social agenda. I really didn't have an agenda coming in, but as many folks have heard me say, as we've battled the world circumstances going back to the Charlottesville stuff in 2017 and the more recent thing with George Floyd and the attempt with the ordinance back in January of 2019 to advance LGBTQ rights. We've elevated women like they have never been elevated before. We employ more females in our organization right now than we ever have in the history of Buchanan. It's important that folks reflect back upon we really are all in it together. I've used that line, I know, 1,000 times during the past 4+ years, but there's no greater truth than we all are in it together, and everyone should have a seat at our table as we seek to advance Buchanan.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for the closing.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Well, there it is.